Welcome friends to a review of the 2025 Toyota Camry. I'm checking out a fully loaded XSE all-wheel drive model. So the total system output of a all-wheel drive Camry is going to be 232 horsepower. If you go with the front-wheel drive, you're going to get 225 horsepower. And stay tuned until the end of this video where I'm going to share with you how you can purchase these new Camrys at invoice pricing. Or if you're interested in a Toyota Crown, there are deep discounts on those vehicles as well. And I'll be sure to compare and contrast this new Camry with the Toyota Crown throughout this review. But for right now, let's go ahead and let's get into my driving impressions. So the biggest highlight for this latest Camry that I've noticed is just how quiet and comfortable this sedan is. Part of the reason for that is because when you go with the XLE or the XSE trim level, you will be getting thicker double pane glass in the side. So this is something that you do not get with the base LE or the SE trim levels. And it's true, no matter what speed you're driving at, whether it's around town or even out on the highway, you hardly get any real wind noise with these new Camrys. And that's fantastic because in the past, when I tested several Toyota products, you would get some wind noise or some type of a whistling effect coming from the front windows. That has now been completely eliminated, at least with this new test model that I'm checking out. You don't have any crazy tire noise or road noise either. We have some Bridgestone tires here, and the refinement improvements is what I really appreciate here compared to before, but the overall essence of the previous Camry has carried over here. So when you drive this, it feels very similar to the previous Camrys, just a bit quieter, and now we only have the hybrid powertrain to choose from. There is no regular 4-cylinder or a V6 option. You just have the hybrid, and I'm not too upset about it. This drivetrain is going to serve most families really well, but keep in mind there is a pretty drastic fuel economy difference between like a base model front-wheel drive LE versus this top-of-the-line XSE. This still gets like 43 in the city, 42 highway, something along those lines. And that's certainly not bad, but the base model LEs, they're in the 50s in terms of fuel economy. I just thought I would mention that. And as always, I'm going to have the full official Toyota spec sheet on the screen for you to check out so there's no confusion. But how is this hybrid power plant? Well, you put your foot into it, this thing really takes off, and it's a really deceptive type of speed. You can be doing 10, 15 miles per hour over the speed limit and not even realize it in this new Camry. I think a lot of that is because of the excellent refinement updates that they've made. So almost like a true luxury car, this is really masking the speed. And you really do get up and move with this power plant. Even out on the highway, I stepped on it and it continues to build power, so that's fantastic. I will say that one of the complaints I've noticed is, dude, where's the brakes? Like, you get on the brakes with this new Camry and this thing, it does not want to stop. Like, I'm deep into the pedal and nothing happens until I get all the way almost to the end of the brake pedal. That's when I get all of the full stopping force, and that's really annoying, especially around town. So not a fan of the way they have the brakes calibrated. I mean, this press car has about 3,600 miles on it. It's possible that it's been destroyed by the other journalists. Now, before I posted this review online, I actually made a shorter pros and cons video regarding the 2025 Camry, and in that video, about 7 different owners commented saying that they had no issues with their brakes. However, about 2 owners, they commented saying that they agree they don't like the braking feel of their new Camry hybrid. So there's those 2 people and my particular experience as well, but it's still outweighed by the 6 to 7 owners who said that they had no issues with the stopping power of their Camry. It is what it is. It's still possible that my particular press vehicle that I have to test, it simply got annihilated by the previous journalists. Whatever the case might be, just do a thorough test drive on whatever vehicle you plan on purchasing. But anyway, you can fix the brakes on your own, put some new pads and rotors on it, not a big deal. Yeah, the speed is not going to be an issue for really any family. And most importantly, the engine, it's not making a nasty racket. pretty smooth tone. In the past, when you would floor it in these Toyotas, it would make a really unrefined noise, but here, this is really acceptable. I was doing some really good speed out on the highway, and the stability of this vehicle is phenomenal. That's another big improvement that I've noticed. When I corner really hard with this sedan, I do notice some body lean taking effect, but that doesn't really detract from my driving experience. I don't really care. Something like a Honda Accord or a Nissan Altima, those sedans, they do feel a bit more planted and buttoned down. But what I've noticed with both of those sedans compared to this is they feel really lifeless and boring to drive. At least with these Toyotas, you feel a little something behind the wheel. When you're just coasting around, the engine will cut off. And when you tip back into the throttle, the engine does start back up, but you don't even notice it. Really smooth hybrid powertrain here. And yeah, back to the handling. You know, it's a predictable type of handling. There's no real issues with it. That's why I don't mind this vehicle having a bit of body roll or body lean. The car is very communicative. The ride quality is amazing, even with these 19-inch wheels. It's absorbing all of the impacts perfectly, both the little bumps, the large bumps. That's great. So, well done with this new Camry, but is it a good value proposition? That's the real question, because as you see it here, my test vehicle is about $44,000. That's ridiculous, of course. I do not recommend anyone paying this amount of money for this car. If you are going to be paying $40K or close to it, I would much rather get the new Toyota Crown, because as good as this car is, this new Camry, the Crown is just one level above it. In fact, the Crown feels closer to a Lexus than it does a Toyota, and that's what the spec sheet will never be able to tell you. For instance, even though this car isn't doing anything wrong per se, there is a bit more of a generic plasticky feel. I know that doesn't sound very good, but it's going to make sense in a moment when you compare this to something like a Crown or an actual Lexus like the ES. Okay, the Crowns and the ESs, they all have like a smoother, more premium steering feel. Again, nothing wrong with the steering rack in this Camry. It's just that you feel the extra level of butteriness and smoothness in those higher end vehicles. To some of you, you might be like, duh, of course, that makes sense. They're more expensive vehicles, but you would be surprised. I did a video on the Crown and nobody understood that vehicle. People were like, oh, why would you pay all that money for a Crown when you can just get the new Camry with the same power plant? Most people are not very good listeners. It is what it is. So they didn't hear the message, and they also didn't hear me say that you can get about $6,000 off the MSRP of a new Crown, which I'm also going to share that later on towards this video. But the Crown is going to be even quieter still than this Camry, okay, both in terms of road noise and wind noise. So there is that. You also get less engine noise with the Crown. So yes, as good as this Camry might be, the Crown and the Lexus ES, they continue to provide a superior, luxurious experience out on the road. Make no mistake about that. Plus, when it comes to the Camry, they really hold back a lot of the good features from you. So even though the starting price seems very attractive with these new Camrys, it doesn't really come with a whole lot. You would at least have to pay $34,000 to get a base XLE with the thicker glass, or an SE model with a few options. That's also going to set you back $34,000, but it's not going to come with the thicker glass like the XLE. So it is what it is. And I did say you can get invoice pricing for these new Camrys. That's about $2,000 off MSRP, roughly. There's a bigger discount on the Crowns, and even a base XLE Crown comes with a lot. And with the discounts, base XLE Crown is going to be approximately $36,000. The limited trim level of the Crown is amazing because it comes with the JBL audio system. So after discounts, the limited will set you back about $39,000. And that's what I'm saying. If you're going to be overpaying for a Camry and you're going to get one of the bloated trim levels with all the options, you're better off with the Crown. Some people have said that they can't fit in the Crown and, you know, their headroom is lacking. You know, people make 1,000,001 excuses to not buy that vehicle. So just go to a dealership, check it out for yourself first to see if you can fit in the Crown. But that's enough of the drive. Let's go ahead and let's transition into this interior segment now. All right, now that we are stopped, let's go ahead and let's talk about this interior space. As always, with every generation of these Camrys, we continue to have a sturdy interior space. Feels really well put together, and I do like the overall design here as well. It doesn't feel quite as generic as something like the new Accord or something from Nissan or any of the other competitors. Granted, this red leather interior, that does add to the experience, but in general, I like the designs and the shapes. And yes, this car is fully loaded, so we have everything like the massive 12.3-inch infotainment screen, the pano sunroof, heated and cooled seats, full digital gauge cluster, etc. So let's just go over some of the highlights here. So even as standard, you are going to get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. That works perfectly. But with the lower trim level vehicles, you will be getting an 8-inch infotainment screen. Here we have the larger 12.3-inch, responds perfectly and very easy to use. I'm not a huge fan of the full digital gauge cluster. It's a little bit cumbersome and a little bit difficult to get used to. So the regular 7-inch display in the lower trims, that should suffice for most families. They do give us all of the useful safety tech features as standard, like blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, etc. And I do love their use of physical buttons and switches for the climate control, plus the climate is separate from the infotainment. Brilliant. Another big upgrade is going to be the seats. They're extremely comfortable. You have plenty of lumbar support. In fact, it's almost overkill the amount of lumbar support you have with this new Camry. So well done there. And if you're interested in knowing, yes, the cooled seats in this car, it does work reasonably well. Much better than the Honda Acura cooled seats, that's for sure. Not a huge fan of the piano black plastic that they're using, both on the air vents and in the center console, but it is what it is. I like the way the wireless phone charger is implemented. Your phone is not going to be flying and flopping all over the place. It remains there and it charges reliably. Cup holders are average, same with the ones in the door pockets. The center armrest is a decent size, however, the glove box is totally useless. In fact, when you have the books and the manuals in there, it genuinely is pointless. You can't really put anything else there. But in general, the doors feel really good when you open and close them. You have the 3 drive modes here, Eco, Normal, and Sport. Sport doesn't really do anything. You don't even notice a change with this vehicle, so there is that. And the optional JBL audio system that we have here, it is amazing. It genuinely does sound really good, and that's been the case with most of these new Toyotas. They have tuned and calibrated this JBL to sound really good. And that's the thing, even with that $34,000 XLE model that I spoke of, it's not going to come standard with that JBL. You still have to pay close to $4,000 to get the JBL. It's part of an additional package. So really a well-equipped XLE is going to set you back $38,000, and that is simply asinine. I don't want to pay that much money for this sedan, especially in a world where most people, they simply want to upgrade to an SUV instead. That's what I'm saying. Toyota is really taxing you to get the useful features that most people would want. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about that rear seating space. So I am 5'11". It is pretty easy to get in and out of this sedan, and I am able to sit behind myself, no issues, but it's not like incredible, amazing rear legroom by any means. In fact, the Crown might even offer a bit more rear legroom. So despite everyone complaining about that car, I think the Crown was a bit more practical in terms of rear seating space, but I would have to try that out once again to really be sure. But regardless, this is okay. I will say though, because of this massive pano sunroof, it does hinder your rear seat headroom a bit. So if you're over 6 feet tall, it's just something to watch out for. But you do have vents back there, and the seats continue to be very comfortable. The trunk is massive. It's like a 15.1 cubic feet trunk. Very practical. You do have a spare tire back there as well underneath, and you are able to fold down the rear seats 60-40, so no problems there. Yeah, overall, pretty well done cabin space. No real issues with it. It's solid, sturdy, You have good visibility all around. Driver's seat is really adjustable, probably more so than the Crown. That is something that some people complained about, so really impressed with the Camry regarding that. And yeah, let's go ahead and let's transition into this conclusion segment now. All right, concluding thoughts on the new Camry. As mentioned before, I am a fan. I like the way it drives. I like how refined and comfortable it is. Everything else has been great. Yes, you do have some body lean in the corners, but that doesn't really detract from your driving experience. In fact, this feels very similar to the previous generation, just more quiet. Interior is pretty comfortable. Love the new seats. The technology is easy to use, and the physical HVAC is always appreciated. And comment below, let me know, do you prefer this new hybrid powertrain or do you miss the V6 from before? I would like to hear your thoughts. Personally, I think this hybrid is going to serve a lot of families really well. Now, as promised at the beginning of this video, here's how you can get invoice pricing on these 2025 Camrys. You can reach out to a broker named Jim. Jim is one of the largest Toyota brokers in the country, and he has dealerships both in Pennsylvania and in California, and he is able to ship nationwide. However, shipping is something you have to pay extra for. With the 2025 Camrys, he is at invoice price, which is about $2,000 off MSRP roughly. And with the 2024 Camrys, he is under invoice. That's something to think about, especially if you are watching this video in 2024. His dealerships obviously want to clear out the older units, so there's bigger discounts. And speaking of discounts, the Toyota Crown, you can get about $6,000 off the MSRP, and that means the base XLE Crown is going to go for about $36,000, and the limited Toyota Crown will be approximately $39,000. So as you can see, instead of paying up for this Camry, I would rather just step into the Crown instead. Yes, it's still a lot of money, but the Crown is also a hybrid, and it is all-wheel drive and made in Japan as well, if that matters to you. Granted, this new Camry built in Kentucky, there is no issues with build quality here. Everything works and functions perfectly. So if you want to work with Jim, he just has a phone number that you can text, and if you mention Meyn Motor Group, he will give you a discounted broker fee, because yes, he does charge a broker fee to access his deals. However, when you text him and mention Meyn Motor Group, he will take $50 off of that broker fee that he charges. I've purchased 2 Toyotas from him, no issues, and I will have all of his information down below in the description box. But if you found value with this content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you're an owner of a 2025 Camry, let us know your thoughts. How is it holding up for you? Did you come from the previous generation Camry or even older than that? So how would you compare this new one to the previous generations? But thank you again for watching. Take care and goodbye.